friends, welcome to another recap video. I'm so excited to be filming this one because this is the most recent one. After this, I have to wait until the end of June in order to record another one, so stoked about that. Thank you for letting me do this, for getting through all of these 3 years of recap videos. It's been so fun to recap all of that time and share everything I've been up to with you. Sometimes I feel a little bit behind, like I should have released music sooner or things like that, but when I'm able to talk about every month on its own, it really puts into perspective everything that I have been doing and makes me feel a little better about that. But I'm super excited about where we're going and what's ahead. So let's talk about 2026. If you want to go back and check out some of the old videos, hear about different times in the last 3 years and how I've gotten to the point that I'm at now this year, you can totally go check those out on my recap video playlist. But without further ado, let's chat about January 2026. So I felt very busy in January because I got some amazing Christmas presents. I got Regal Unlimited for Christmas, and I had been wanting that since I moved to Nashville because every Sunday I would totally take a chill day, just go to church and then vibe out and rest, and that usually entailed listening to a lot of music or watching a movie or reading my Bible or reading a book. But I just always really would get so bored by the end of the day and really wanted to go to a movie, but I just felt like I couldn't rationalize spending money on it. So the whole year I really wanted Regal Unlimited, and I got it for Christmas. And so I was really using that to smithereens. I was seeing so many movies. So there was that, and then also there's this thing called the Coffee Crawl that started. I don't know if it started in January or if they did one earlier, but basically there's this group that puts together these coffee crawls where they partner with a bunch of coffee shops in all sorts of cities, but they did one in Nashville. You paid $20 and then you got 10 $5 vouchers to coffee shops around the city. So I was super stoked about that. Such a great deal. And I kind of made it a tradition to go to each of them and journal at each of the coffee shops, because I have a note on my phone where I rank coffee shops on different criteria, and it's a lot easier to do that if I spend some time there to check out the vibe and hear the music they're playing and stuff like that. And it ended up getting me to journal a lot more because I was trying to hit all of these spots. So that was really fun and kind of got me out to see Nashville more. I don't know where you are, but you probably were affected a little bit by the storm at the end of January, especially if you were in the South, but Nashville got absolutely obliterated. We had this crazy snowstorm and ice storm, and people were saying power could be out for a long time. You gotta stock up. So I got my rations and said goodbye to my nanny family and hunkered down. And lo and behold, the first night I had lost power, and oh my goodness, I just remembered it was awful. So when the power went out in my apartment building, I believe there was some kind of a leak, and it set off the fire alarms. And so at 6 a.m, all the power was off, fire alarms are going off, and everybody's peeking outside of their doors. I'm about to start walking out, even though it's raining ice, and someone was like, "Wait, are you gonna leave the building?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Can I come with you?" And so then I'm leading the brigade of all the people leaving the building with the fire alarm going off. And my MO with that kind of thing is usually I just kind of wait it out because I don't trust that there's actually an emergency, which is probably not great. I have anxiety about a lot of things, but I also do not have anxiety about some things like that. All of us were standing out in this freezing rain for 20 minutes before we all decided to just stand in the hallway and wait until the alarm went off, because it's if we're right by the door, we can easily leave. It was a very cold endeavor. Someone very kind brought us earplugs because we were listening to the fire alarm for an hour. Yeah, so then I came back in and I fell asleep until noon, and that's when I woke up and it was definitely colder in my apartment. I woke up to multiple phone calls from my very lovely friends who were like, "Are you okay? We want to make sure you're okay living alone. Do you want to come over?" And so I went over to my friends, Audrey and Gabe, and they also had my friends Brandon, Hannah, Ben, and Caleb over because they also didn't have power, and neither did Audrey and Gabe, but they had a fireplace, so that was the jackpot. They taped up some blankets over the doors to insulate that one room that we were all in, and it was so sweet. Gabe somehow like made pasta on his grill. Everybody just like ate dinner by candlelight. We did a bunch of puzzles. I learned that there is a way to competitively do puzzles. A couple people were like putting pieces in the wrong spot. It was infuriating me, but I was really happy to be in that company, and it just was so fun because I live alone and I do enjoy that, and it's something I'd always dreamt of doing, but it can get lonely, and so getting to hang out with like 6 of my friends for what ended up being almost a week was just so fun. We all just pooled all of our food and were sharing that and playing games together, and we watched Beef together, which I had seen before but loved watching again. We had one big sleepover the first night because they had power after that, even though the rest of us didn't have power for a while. Man, just like having a big sleepover with my friends, it was so sweet. I loved it so much. And I think being someone who has always been single, I think I have a lot of envy in that for the people who like get to experience that, and I want that. And so sometimes I resent married couples for like always having their own space, which obviously is not unfair. They totally should. It's just that I want to experience that. Getting to like have a sleepover with all my friends, even after multiple of them have entered into that new stage of life, was just really, really cool. And like, wow, like maybe this isn't totally gone, even if we were kind of pretending in a way, because we didn't really have another option. But it was just so fun. My friends got on the news because they were collecting random tree limbs off of the street that had fallen. It really was dire out there. It did not look good. But they were picking up all these tree limbs so that they could like dry them and burn them in the fire. And somebody from the Tennessean walked up and was like, "Can I take pictures of you guys?" And they posted the pictures of my friends picking up like tree limbs, being like, "Nashville residents, help clean up the streets," when we were just trying to get wood. My car also got towed for the first time. Somebody apparently had left a note on my dash shortly after I got there or something that was like, "You can't park here, we're gonna tow it if you don't move it." But obviously I didn't go out to my car. It was completely frozen over. My car got towed and I had to go get it back. My parents were very kind and paid for it, but boo, awful, horrible. And in an ice storm, really? It was lame. For theater, I took my friend Lane to Les Mis. That was her Christmas present, and she had never seen a professional show, so we went to Les Mis at TPAC, and I was so excited to see that because I saw that in London as one of my first shows. I think it was in like my first 10 shows or something. I did not rank it very highly. I think it was just the fact that I'm sure it was ranked well when I only had 10 shows in my ranking, but once I started seeing other shows, I would get recency bias, and then it ended up being in like the 60s out of 100 in my list. So I was so excited to see that again so that I could move it up, and I really did, because wow, like incredible. I love a completely sung through musical, and that's what it is. And then just the the message that's delivered there, and the amount of attention that's put into each of the characters, even though there are so many of them, is so awesome. And I think I just didn't really understand how poignant the religious and social commentary is in that show until I saw it again. It just is so beautiful. It's an incredible show. I read 3 books that month. I got really into reading books and then watching their movie in February, but I didn't totally do that in January yet. I just was reading still a lot. I read a lot at the beginning of this year. So I started by finishing Twilight New Moon, and that's funny because I was actually just talking to my nanny kid today about what happens in that book. It is ridiculous. It was really fun and easy to read those books, and I am really happy stopping with 2 of them for a good long while. I also read The Housemaid, and that was one that I did want to read before I went and saw it in theaters, so I read it. And I did not love the book, and I did think the movie was better than the book, but I didn't really like the movie either. It didn't do it for me. I did not enjoy the writing style, but more power to you if you do. It's the kind of thing that like is just sort of an easy read, and obviously it is kind of a thriller, but I don't know, maybe I felt weird about it because I am kind of a housemaid myself. I finished the Bible. I had never read the Bible all the way through, and I think it's because I always had such high expectations for myself. Whenever I decided to read the whole Bible, I would always be like, okay, I'm gonna read 4 chapters a day, and then I would totally fizzle out after a month. Right after I dropped out of Moody, I decided I was just going to read 1 chapter a day and let it take as long as it takes. And I skipped very long periods of time. Like, I didn't really read it at all in Amsterdam, aside from, obviously when we would for class and whatever, but I just didn't do it of my own volition. I finally got through the entire thing in January of this year. So that's really cool. I have read the entire Bible. I've really been just kind of taking bits and pieces since then, reading devotionals, stuff like that, and I like the idea of reading it again in a different translation, but I don't know how much I'm getting from that. So for now, I appreciate having other people help me understand it instead of just getting the overview, but it's really cool that I can say I've read the whole thing now. What I was listening to for music, I discovered Lucy by Ryman. I knew about Ryman before, but Lucy is by far my favorite song of his. I watched J. Kelly. That was the first movie I watched in January, and I loved the soundtrack to it. It's so beautiful, and so I was actually unironically listening to that soundtrack. I got into Joshua Sloan. My friend Aubrey introduced me to him in October, and I listened through the whole album and was not really influenced, but then something about it just really got to me in January, and I loved it. I think a lot of times in January I develop kind of a love for really pathetic romantic songs, and usually that is Nick Wilson. I have a history of listening to Nick Wilson a lot in January, but this time it was Joshua Sloan. And then my friend Gabe, once they got power back, he was playing his farmers market playlist on Spotify that they make for you, and it was incredible, and I asked him for his playlist, and then I realized it's one they make for you based on your taste, so I couldn't get the playlist he was playing because it was so good, and I was so sad. But one of the songs was Opaline by Novo Amor, and I was super into Novo Amor that previous December and was kind of saving the rest of his music because I only listened to Collapse List. I was saving the rest for when I got tired of Collapse List so that I could enjoy it all over again. Opaline came on, and I just was so taken aback even from the hook of that song, and I just kind of closed my eyes and went on that journey in the midst of all my friends doing puzzles and everything, and it was so good. So definitely listen to that multiple times. And then let's talk about movies. There are definitely quite a few, surprisingly more than you'd expect not at the movie theater, because I was just going there all the time. I'm kind of like, why would I watch a movie at home now when I can go to the theater? I'm getting a little bit spoiled, but there are still quite a few that weren't from there. So J. Kelly I watched on a plane, and I really liked that. I think it didn't get incredible reviews, but a lot of the movies coming out around that time were really talking about the expense of ambition and how to hold everything at equal value in your life, and I think I was just really needing to hear that at the time. I really loved the way that J. Kelly did it. It just was engaging to me. I loved the performances, and the soundtrack was gorgeous. Plus, most of it takes place in Europe, which I love, so it just really hit the spot for me. I also saw Marty Supreme in theaters, which is a similar notion, interestingly enough, but that movie is just disaster after disaster. And I used to love Timothée Chalamet when he did his French boy kind of thing, and I'm not loving him now. And he is doing the movie star thing, so good for him, but I miss who he used to be. My Laurie. The Laurie Timothée Chalamet. I saw Avatar Fire and Ash in theaters. That was really hard to stay awake through. Obviously, my sister and I watched the first 2 Avatar movies over winter break. I kind of just was like, okay, I've seen these, and it was a lot of blue, and we watched them in so many bite-sized pieces, so to sit through the entire thing was a lot, but I definitely understood the plot a lot more that way. It just was a commitment. And it was so interesting how many biblical motifs were in that. I kept being like, whoa, this is a Bible story and this is a Bible story. So I don't know if they meant to do that, but I saw Is This Thing On? That was Laura Dern and Will Arnett. It was directed by Bradley Cooper, and I was absolutely destroyed by A Star is Born when I watched that last year. I was kind of hoping for that to be the case with this one, and it definitely was not. It was one of the movies I like to call a This Is the Way Life Is movie, where it's just the way life is. Nothing crazy happens. It's just like, wow, this is the way life is. I went to a movie night where we watched 10 Things I Hate About You, and I love that movie. It is one of the best rom-coms ever. It's so good. Heath Ledger, dude. He's the GOAT. I watched Daddy Daycare while I was nannying. That was one of my absolute all-time favorite movies growing up, which is such a pull in retrospect. Like Steve Zahn, I was repping Steve Zahn from day one, dude. So it was fun to rewatch that, and I think I enjoyed it a lot more than the kids did. I had a resolution with my friends that I made in California in high school to watch a movie over FaceTime together like once or twice a month. We only did it once. And we were gonna start with the theme of our favorite movies that everyone else hadn't seen. I went first and I picked Muppets Most Wanted because they'd all seen like my favorite movies, Little Women, French Dispatch, Whiplash. It's so silly. I've talked about it before, but I love it. It's just such a good time, all the celebrity cameos and the songs. So I made them watch that. It was such a good time. I saw The Housemaid. I already talked about that. My nanny kids and I watched We Can Be Heroes, which is like this superhero Netflix movie that oddly enough Pedro Pascal is in. I don't know how I felt about that, but we always talk about Guppy, that character in that movie, so I don't know. It birthed a reference, I guess. I saw Following in theaters, which was Christopher Nolan's first release, and apparently it had never had a cinematic release before, or if it did, it was very short, so it was cool to go see that. I expected more from it. I wanted it to have that same eerie feeling that Memento did, and it did not. It felt very matter of fact, but it's cool that I saw it. I watched Anaconda. That was completely random, but I love Jack Black and I love Paul Rudd. The movie was not necessarily for me. I was not the target demographic, but I had some chuckle moments. And then I got to see Gladiator in theaters, which I had never seen before, so I'm very glad I went and saw that. Joaquin Phoenix blew me away. He was so good. I didn't know he could act like that as a child. In February, I definitely, as I mentioned, got into reading a book and then watching the movie, and I kind of set high standards for myself because Regal does this thing every month where they show one different movie every day with a general theme. So in February, it was all romantic movies. I picked 4 of the movies that they were showing and thrifted the books for them so that I could read them and then go and see the movie, which was so ambitious, but I was doing it. So I kind of did 3. Actually, so I bought 5 books, and 2 of them were movies I'd already seen. It was The Notebook and Breakfast at Tiffany's, so I kind of nixed those. But the first one I did was Crazy Rich Asians, which I had seen before, but I did not remember it at all. So it was fun to read that. And that just is like a crazy book. They really are crazy rich Asians. And it's just every page is like, whoa, I never would have thought of that kind of exorbitant wealth. The movie didn't do it for me. I was really hoping with John M. Chu that it would kind of have a Wicked vibe, and it did not. It felt very like millennial iMovie kind of a vibe, but it was a decent enough adaptation. And then I also read almost the entirety of Atonement. I still haven't finished the last 10 pages, but I was reading it in the theater as the trailers were going because I was so close to finishing it. And I loved that book and movie. Oh my gosh, it was incredible. It was so good. I think the book was definitely character study more than anything. It was interesting to see how Bryony is her name, I think, grows up and tries to atone for the things that she did, for the lie that she told. Yeah, the movie is such a faithful adaptation. It just follows the book to a T, which is a breath of fresh air. And the lighting in that movie and the soundtrack, they're just gorgeous. Also, so many acting roles that you never would have expected. Mr. Tumnus, I don't remember his real name, but as the love interest, and Benedict Cumberbatch as a villain, and the chick from Ted Lasso is in it as a kid. It was crazy, and it was a little hard to wrap my mind around it at first, but man, that is a beautiful movie. And oh my gosh, the war scene, whew, beautiful. And then I also read The Silver Linings Playbook, which was not what I expected. I had started watching that movie several years ago and only made it 20 minutes in, and the book is so different from the movie. It's so different because in the book he definitely has some kind of a disability or a PTSD sort of a situation, and that is not the case in the movie at all because there's a memory loss aspect in the book. So I don't know, I definitely appreciated the book more. I felt definitely more interested in the book. It felt like They took out the most interesting parts of the book to make the movie just so that Bradley Cooper could play him. I went to Gatlinburg again with my nanny family. We had done that before, but this one was just a really quick, easy trip with just the girls. They swam, we watched a bunch of movies, very chill, very easy. My friend Alana came to visit. She's awesome. I met her when I did YWAM in Montana. We somehow make plans all the time. She lives in Indiana, but I've seen her 1 to 2 times a year since we did YWAM together in 2020. Whether it be me going to her or her coming to me, we just always see each other, and it's awesome. And I don't know how it happens. It's kind of by chance, but it's great. So she came and stayed with me, and we hung out, and it was lovely. And then I planned a trip to New York. Obviously that's no surprise, but this was like the first time that I just did it without my parents. Normally I try to coordinate it with them and then they will pay for my hotel or flight ticket or whatever it may be, but I just did this completely by myself. When I told my parents I was going, they're like, with who? And I was like, me, I'm going to see my sister. Man, the theater was incredible. That was one of the best theater trips I've been on, like for just consistent across the board. I made the impulsive decision, I was so on the fence and I did it, to buy the ticket to Masquerade. And those tickets are like $250, which is a lot for a Broadway ticket. You can get Broadway tickets that are like in the 600s, but you can also get Broadway tickets that are like, if you're really crafty, like 30, but usually they're around like 60. So $250 is a lot, but I did it. And man, I'm so glad because that was incredible. Let me educate you. So I'm sure you're familiar with the Phantom of the Opera. They turned the Phantom of the Opera into an immersive experience where you are in it. You have to only wear white, black, or silver. You have to give a password at the door, and you can either bring a mask or they give you one, but you have to wear a mask. You walk around this whole space. They start out, with these live violinists and a glass of champagne, and then they walk in and they teach you this dance you're supposed to do, and all the people come in and you do the masquerade dance with all the performers, and then like as they're doing dialogue, you're in the room with them and they're interacting with you and talking to you, and I just don't know how they do it as seamlessly as they do, but it was phenomenal. I don't know, they try to like single out specific people. They'll give people different sheets of paper or whatever. And I got pulled into this separate room where this actor like danced with me and then showed me like a newspaper and a rose and all this stuff like from the Phantom, and I got to keep the newspaper, which is so cool, and I still have it and I love it. I just was taken aback. It was phenomenal. And of course the performers were amazing too. I want to see every show I've ever seen like that. It was so cool. The reason I went was to see Moulin Rouge again because they announced that it's going to be closing this summer, and it's my favorite show, and that's so sad. So I wanted to make sure I knew like that I could see it again. I saw it with Bob the Drag Queen, which was great because I do love The Traitors. I had watched him in that, and so it was very fun to go and see him, and it's so funny. They like in their last year of doing Moulin Rouge, they're really just like throwing it all to the wind. Like they just gave him a whole song at the end, like about purses, which I'm sure if you know Bob the Drag Queen, you know better than me, but man, it was funny and it was such a good time, and I'm gonna miss that show so bad. It just is such a comfort show for me now. It used to be like the most incredible theater spectacle thing, and now it's just like, oh, my heart. And then I saw Ragtime, which is so insanely incredible. It's so, so good. I've seen it twice now. I'll talk about that eventually, but it just blows me away how some shows like that could be written so long ago, and not so long ago, but several decades, can still be so poignant now. And the performances delivered in that are so moving. The vocals are great, and oh, it's devastating. I just sob the whole time. I hope it wins all the Tonys. And I love chess, and I'm upset that it didn't get as many nominations as I wanted it to, but I want Ragtime to sweep. It is so good and so important. It stands so alone. They don't do anything gimmicky, and even so, it's so incredibly moving. They don't need to do anything gimmicky. Like, the material itself and the performances of it blow you away. Can't recommend it enough. I did see one more that leaned into March, so we'll wait. I'll keep you on the edge of your seat. But that was great, and I spent some time with Macy and got to see those shows, so that was great. It really is awesome to have a sister who lives in New York, and I take advantage of it for sure. Oh, and then I also saw Six. at TPAC with my nanny kid, which was very, very fun to get to take her to that show, but I do not really enjoy Six as a musical. It was fun to take her, and she was obsessed with it. Music I was listening to, I got super into Carol Aids, and I had listened to her before, but I listened to her album for the first time. I don't remember what it's called, Late Start maybe? And I loved that, and I loved a lot of her new singles. The Worst Person in the World I was definitely vibing to. I got really into Noah Flirsch's single, The Lady on the Moon. He just writes such good bops like that. He has such a singular sound that are so good. Claire Rosencrantz put out a new album, and I liked that a lot for 1 second before my nanny kids got a hold of it, and then it kind of ruined it for me. And I'm scared that they're going to do that again with the musical I'm obsessed with right now, but I'm still so obsessed with it that it's fine. It'll be okay. Then for movies, I saw Mercy in theaters. That was Chris Pratt and Rebecca Ferguson. That was very, very mid. I felt like they could have done way more, but then it was low-key not anti-AI at the end, and I am very anti-AI. So, not the movie for me. I watched Zombies with my nanny kid, and I had never seen that, and it was really not good. Of course, everybody's always yeah, the new whatever is not as good as the one I grew up with, but I grew up on slightly late good Disney Channel. I was watching Good Luck Charlie, Austin and Ally, but then into Teen Beach Movie, the last thing I really remember was Andy Mack, so it was pretty far, but Zombies was after me, and it's really rough. I watched Twilight New Moon, and that was a really rough watch. I do not like the Twilight movies. The books are kind of fun to read, but the movies are just god-awful. And I know people like to hate watch them, but I just can't even enjoy hate watching them. I just hate watching them. I watched 13 Going on 30 with my nanny kid. That was sweet. It was just the two of us. It had been so long since I'd seen that movie. It's really, really sweet. I saw Crazy Rich Asians, of course, and then I watched The Muppet Show with my nanny kids. That was the 30-minute thing they did with Sabrina Carpenter. It felt very new. I wish they would do the 2010 version of The Muppets, not the 2026 version. The next 3 are all ones I watched with my nanny kids on our trip to Gatlinburg. It was actually just the one older one. I still think is too young for these movies, but her mom gave us the okay, so we watched Mean Girls, and she loved it. She actually has handled that content pretty well. She has not been abusing her knowledge of it, so more power to her. And then we watched All the Boys I've Loved Before and P.S. I Still Love You, and that was very fun. I felt like that was way more age appropriate and just really fun to rewatch those. I am 100% a Jordan Fisher girl, so I'm very much team him. I don't remember his character name, but my nanny kid liked Peter Kavinsky more, so we're a house divided. And then of course I saw Atonement and Silver Linings Playbook, and then I think on a plane I watched Now You See Me, Now You Don't. Finally, I got really into that series that previous fall. They're just such an easy watch, so fun. I love the actors in it, so it was fun to watch that again, and kind of felt like the Avengers of Now You See Me, which that's maybe an overstatement, but it was a good time. Alright, in March, I hung out with this new group of friends for the first time. So I mentioned my friend Lane, but she kind of set me up with these other 2 girls that she had met through writing for Sync. And so the 4 of us, me, Lane, Chloe, and Lizzie, all hung out to hang up posters for our music, which is kind of random, but I was like, let's hang out with these girls. And we all really hit it off. We hung out 1 or 2 more times that month. We're called the Cusbands. I love a name for a friend group. I've gotten some flack for that before, but that's fine. They were asking if you had to marry one of your cousins, who would it be? So we got right to it on that first hang. My answer is none of them, because I am the oldest cousin of my entire family on both sides. I also watched all of the Oscar nominees. They were showing all of them at Regal, and so it was so cool to get to see all of them in theaters, except for Train Dreams. I didn't see Train Dreams, but I saw the rest. And so I loved being educated on that. I also started writing music again. I took a 6-month hiatus, which I'm only starting to realize. I think I might be realizing why, but we don't need to talk about that right now. But yeah, I started writing music again, and it was so nice. I was writing 1 song, maybe 2 songs a week. So I'd love to tell you about those songs. I wrote 4 songs in March. The first one was called Common Thread, and I wrote that one about just feeling like there were a lot of things in my life that didn't really make sense together. I don't know if you've ever felt like that, where there were just so many things I was thinking about, and I couldn't really figure out what the common denominator was between all of them, and so I wrote Common Thread about that. Oh, there's gotta be a common thread throughout it all. There's something that is binding all the pages. Oh, string or a silver lining, the phrase and the this song Coping Mechanism, which was really random. Sometimes I sit down to write a song not knowing what I'm going to write a song about and just seeing what happens. And I wrote that about kind of feeling like being a musician is a worthless occupation in this state of our world right now. Like, what good is music gonna do? You know, like, obviously it is healing and it's a source of fun, it's a source of art and creativity, but like, maybe things could get better through music, but not at the level I'm at, I don't think. Outside of just like affecting individual lives, which is so important, but I'm like, what about like being a politician? So I wrote Coping Mechanism about that, basically saying I'm a coping mechanism for other people by making music. And it's just kind of a hopeless, the world sucks kind of a song.
Pay me to delay what will pay me to delay what will all those men you staunchly loathe already die on that hill. So sing my songs and call it growth. Pay me to delay what will die martyr, die no. Can our scorched earth now chill? Cheers our failure with a toast.
I wrote this song, We Could Help Each Other, that was just kind of feeling like I was underwater and would love to have someone there to kind of hold my hand through life and trying to accomplish everything I'm trying to accomplish.
We could help each other if it's something you could handle. We could light each other's candle. We'd be scared together. We could talk each other through it, forge a dream and we'd pursue it. 'Cause I can't do this alone anymore.
And then there's the song Make Believe, which has a lot to do with the personal growth that I was going through in March that kickstarted a whole journey for me that I've been going through in the last few months. But Make Believe is about that and how I was spending so much effort loving and pouring into my past self that I was losing who I am today. Saying, you know, I was playing make-believe with this person I used to be, and I don't know who that is, and I want to be myself and figure out who that is.
I don't know that girl. What led her to think that she could learn to swim and it would mean she'd never sink? I am not that girl. Yes, I feel remorse, but who I used to be no longer commandeers my course. I won't be that girl. I am not that girl.
And then that's kind of a nice transition. I finished the EP for one, so I'm working on marketing now and release strategy and promo materials and stuff. This is a really funny thing to talk about, wearing pink, but I stopped wearing pink. I actually unironically wore this shirt today because I had to wear my rain boots and I only have pink rain boots, but I'm wearing blue shorts, never fear. I had an identity crisis. I think the thing that did it was my really good friend Peps sent me a DM when I posted the first song that I wrote again after I took that long hiatus. And it was like a 10-minute voice memo. And she's from France, so she has a beautiful accent that actually leans British, interestingly enough, when she speaks English. But she sent me this long, beautiful voice memo, and I think it was why I was able to receive it so well, because of how beautiful it sounded. But she was saying, you know, you have this whole plan for how you want to release your music and the ways that you want to promote it. You know, releasing it all in the order that it was written. That's great, and maybe that feels authentic to you. But is that the thing that is honoring people through your music? Is that the purpose of your music, or is that just a self-expression endeavor? And I'm saying it less eloquently than she did, but the idea that perhaps I was making these choices for my career and for how I represent myself in and out of it just based on my own dreams and ideas without considering my faith or other people. I've always, you know, said that I want to help people through my music, that I want it to be for other people, but I never actually really understood how that could be the case until she brought that up, because so many people were like, what if you aren't successful releasing things in order? And I was like, I don't care, it's authentic to me. But then thinking about that, I was like, oh shit, if I release different songs, I could probably be blessing people. Because the thing about what she said to me is that I've written her a song before and she wants it out. But that's not the whole reason. Like, she actually was thinking critically and emotionally. But in that context, you know, I could really bless people by putting out the songs I've written about them, which isn't to say that all the songs I write need to be about other people, but there are specific songs that have impacted people already in special ways, and I can really bless them by putting those out first. And that's just really cool because it's something that naturally flows from me and then accidentally blesses someone, but there is that element of choice where I'm choosing to put that out and represent myself with the songs that impact other people rather than the ones that impact me. So clearly that really got me thinking. So at that point, I kind of decided not to release my music in order anymore. I'm gonna release the EP that I have recorded, of course, but then after that, I don't know what I'm going to release, so go through my YouTube and tell me which ones you like and which ones you really want, which ones have impacted you that you would love to have on Spotify and Apple Music and what have you. It feels like the great unknown. I just don't know what's coming next, and I have kind of a sneaking suspicion, but I'll need to pray about it and ask some people and things. But that also got me thinking about the pink thing, and a lot of people have challenged me on that too. It's kind of crazy that I committed to that for like 3 years. I only wore pink and white and beige for 3 years. I started to think about it and I'm like, I am identifying with what I do instead of who I am. I think it really helped right when I started pursuing music because I was so all in about it, but that's not a way to live. I'm about to turn 23. I'm 23 now, and I don't know what my style is. I only know pink and white. I don't know what I like to wear. I don't know what colors I like to wear. And then it kind of got me thinking, like, do I want to spend my entire 20s pretending to be my teenage self or just a previous version of myself? I don't think so. I think I want to know who I am, not just who I used to be. And I do tend to be an idealist of the past, but I thought I had gotten over that in the past few years because I was excited about the present until I realized that the entire way I present myself was based on the past. Man, I just kind of got into this rut of that being the case, but that doesn't need to be the case, and I can let that go. And you know, I'm such a fan of tradition that it's very difficult for me to change my mind, and I'm very thankful for the times that I have in the past few years, but I'm kind of on a streak now where I'm like, what else can I change my mind about? And there are, of course, some things that will not change, like my commitment to music, my commitment to my faith, but I'm trying shit now, you guys. So the first thing was that I switched to different colors, or just to any color at all. I prayed about that, and I considered switching once I announced my EP, but I felt like if I did that, it would still be a career move because it would still signal this transition from one EP to another. I felt like the Lord wanted me to do it before so that I had to tell people about that personal journey, about how the Lord told me to do it, instead of making it about the EP, because that's the reason that I did pink in the first place. It's been really lovely, and I'm figuring myself out. It kind of started with like, okay, I want to chop my hair, and I chop my hair. You can't tell right now, but the last recap video you can. And I'm working on music more, and I'm not being as afraid to drink. Making decisions that most people actually try to do the opposite of, but like, I've been so paranoid about being alive for so long that I'm like, screw it, I need to be alive, you know? So it's really good for me. I am letting loose a bit, as far as I can let loose, which is not very far, but I'm like to normal person standards at this point, and it's like crazy for me. I saw 3 shows that month. The play that I mentioned before was Data. That was at the Lucille Hotel. I saw that with my sister, and that was a really fun cast. It was Brandon Flynn from 13 Reasons Why, who I did not realize was as hot as he was until we saw that play. It's the theater boy effect, where you see him in a show, and then of course they are hotter than you thought they were. Karan Brar, who is Ravi and Jesse. This guy, I don't remember his name, but he was in Beef season 1 as like the worship leader dude. Sophia Lillis, who my sister is obsessed with. She definitely had a fangirl moment when we stage doored, but that was very fun. My sister loved that play. I was not as obsessed with it. It was basically just like a moral dilemma where this dude, who was Karan Brar, had to decide whether to get a promotion at work, but it was like kind of a sketchy project that they were working on. I think it was like surveillance or something. And I just felt like I got more of that postmodern oomph from Job, and Macy hadn't seen that, so of course Macy loved Data, but her celebrity crush was also in it, so that'll do something to you. And then at TPAC I saw Suffs and Back to the Future. I had not seen Suffs. I did not enjoy it. I am all for women's suffrage. I'm not necessarily all for musicals about it. And then Back to the Future is just such a good time as always, but it was the third time I've seen it, so I'm getting a little tired of it. But I do enjoy it. It is like a really fun time to go to. For music, I got really into Rufus Wainwright. Macy got me into him when I was in New York. She really liked Cigarettes and Chocolate Milk at first, and so I got into that as well. I love a song where it starts out super simple and then like kind of spirals into like more meaningful things and then just ends on that bass line again. I actually just wrote a song that's like that. And then I also love Beautiful Child by him. And I was listening to both of those albums, but those two songs in particular were my faves. I really liked Lake Effect by Daryl Ron. I saw Daryl Ron open for Winnetka Bowling League in 2024. That new song came on like my Discover or something, but really good stuff. And it reminded me a lot of one of Adam Melcher's unreleased songs that he's not releasing as far as I know, so it kind of scratched that itch a little bit. And then I discovered Delwater Gap. And I think I had heard Coping on Unemployment once or twice before, but I was like, okay, I gotta discover who this guy is. And it just really made me feel cool for the little bit that I was obsessed with him. Coping on Unemployment is so good. Gemini is great. All We Ever Do Is Talk. That album is just stellar and makes me feel very cool. Oh, and Dollhouse, ugh. I only read one book. That was the final venture into a bunch of reading, and it was Hamnet. Definitely a tough read, but a tougher watch. Let's just talk about that. Hamnet. That actually was the first movie I saw that month, so that's fitting. I had read the book. I knew it was going to happen, but it's got to me way more in theaters. And it's not even just the Paul Mescal of it all. It was like, it really wrecked me. I was sobbing in that theater. On the same day, I saw Hoppers, which was crazy. I love all the Letterboxd reviews that are like, it's about time Pixar made a fuck-ass weird shit movie. Like, it's so dumb. The freaking ripping his face off part, wild. But, you know, whatever. I went with just the older kid that I nanny, so we could kind of make fun of it. I saw Sentimental Value in theaters, and that didn't totally do it for me. That is yet another movie that talks about the effect of choosing fame over family, but it just felt like a much more toned down one, and I think I resonated more when it was told from the perspective of the people who had the over ambition. And this is obviously important because you get to see the other side of it and how it affects people, but I tend to be the overly ambitious one usually, so seeing how that affected other people through the lens of the overly ambitious person resonated with me more, I think. I saw The Secret Agent, and I really liked that. I thought it was really good. I was really impressed with myself for being as locked in with the whole movie being in Portuguese, but I'm getting better about foreign language films, thank God. The first act really dragged, but it was cool because it established these characters as a family, you know, as a found family, and really made you care about the second and third acts a little bit more. I think the third act was definitely like, I'm pretty sure I'm remembering correctly where that's like the more action-packed one. That was crazy. There was one act of it, because there were three, that was really boring. The other two were very fascinating. And I saw One Battle After Another. And that was by far my favorite of this award season. I'm so lucky I got to see that in theaters. I tried to start watching it over winter break, and I turned it on the TV, and I got 5 minutes in. It was 10 in the morning, and my family was like, what are you watching in there? And I turned it off. And I'm so glad I did, because I needed to experience this movie by myself. The journey it takes you on, and the music, the sound design, that final car scene, the acting in that, phenomenal. It's an incredible movie. I really like what it does for societal commentary, and just, man, that car scene, like, everybody in the theater was gasping, and this is like months after it came out. It was a re-release for Oscar season. I was up out of my seat. And then F1. I was having a bad day the day I went to see F1, and I thought it was going to help to go see a movie, and it didn't. It was so mid. I did not care about it at all. But I had a whole pack of Oreos that time, so that was great. I went and saw Wuthering Heights with Lane. I was so on the fence about whether I wanted to see it, and sorry, I liked it. And I've read the book. But for one, I read it a long time ago and didn't really get it. It was the first classic I ever really read outside of like school. I didn't really understand it, and so I was really able to separate that and not have to make it a faithful adaptation. And I knew it was Emerald Fennell going into it. I knew it was Jacob Elordi. I knew it was not going to be a faithful adaptation. There were definitely a lot of parts that I didn't need to see. There was a lot of like fingering inanimate globs that I didn't enjoy. As a vegan, the egg stuff, nope, I'm good. There were definitely some really great parts as well. The cinematography was cool, design of it was awesome, and as far as the romance went, it worked for me. I'm sorry. Before they perverted it, the barn thing was really sweet and like considerate and cool. And then they perverted it and it was like, okay, well, whatever. But that's my 2 cents on that. And then the last one I watched was Theater Camp. I think I just like had that on while I was cooking or something, but that is like one of my all-time favorite movies just because it like works so well for me. I am the exact target audience for that movie. Well, that is it, my friends. That was way longer than I thought it was gonna be, but I'm happy we got through it, and I'm excited that the next recap videos are going to be in real time. I love you. I hope you're doing so good and having the best spring. I know I am having a very eventful spring. I hope that you are happy and healthy and productive and doing things you never thought you would and reaping so many rewards from it and spending time with friends and family and figuring out who you are and connecting with things outside of yourself and above yourself and connecting with yourself too. And I just hope the world for you, and clearly I'm having a good time. All right, I love you. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon.